Hi there and welcome to this thought leadership video where I'm thrilled to be joined by Glenn Wepener, who's the Chief Strategist at First Abu Dhabi Bank. Mr. Glenn, good to see you again.
James, always good to see you.
Thank you for the invite. Big news over the weekend, the OPEC Plus decision to start reducing, cutting back on the oil barrels. So what's your thoughts? Was it a big surprise to you as well?
Yeah, look, it was a big surprise, I think, to everyone. But from my point of view, I think more because of the fact that it was announced the day before the Joint Ministerial Monetary Committee of OPEC Plus was scheduled to meet, rather than actually the announcement itself. I actually published a piece back on the 22nd of March in which I actually said that I thought the chances of OPEC Plus doing something was building. And the indications were there, to be honest. During February, during early March, there were comments from various energy officials, including, in fact, the Iraqi energy minister, who said that the producers needed to think about some coordinated action to stabilize the market. And obviously that speeded up after, we had that big decline after the SVB story broke, and so on. I think the biggest wake-up call, to be honest, was to the speculators. There was a big build-up of short positions going on, and obviously after this announcement, a chunk of those have been squeezed out. On the structural side, I think what we're going to see is a speed up in the reduction of inventories. Now, inventories, as you probably know, have recovered significantly, particularly in the OECD region during Q1. In fact, at the end of March, I think they were sitting around 5 or 6% above the 5-year average, which is a big change to what we saw at the end of, towards the end of last year. Now, the oil market itself was looking for supply to swing back into a deficit during the latter half of this year. But obviously this announcement, I think, will speed up things a little bit. Conversely, obviously the higher prices as well helps US production, US producers. US production, I think, was around 12.2 million barrels per day during Q1, which is up from the 11.9 million barrels per day in 2022. So I think that as long as prices stay around this level, or probably even edge a bit higher, then we'll see the production from the US probably start to increase again, because it had started to tape off over the past few weeks.
Okay, that's oil covered. Let's talk more regionally now. So it looks like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Iran, negotiations, lines of communication are now open. I'd love to get your thoughts in terms of what does that mean, and more importantly, what does that mean for the JCPOA Accord?
Yeah, so another surprise event, obviously this time on the geopolitical side rather than on the economic side. Of course, I think it's early days, but anything that can potentially improve stability in the region is a good thing. My key takeaway, though, from this is the fact that it was brokered by China. And it highlights China's growing influence in this part of the world, in a region where traditionally the US has been the major external player. The other thing I think as well that it indicates perhaps is that China's foreign policy is changing a little bit. It now seems that it's getting a lot more hands-on in terms of how it handles its foreign policy issues. So we see whether that could go. In answer to your question, though, in terms of whether or not this changes, or may revive talks concerning the JCPOA agreement, I think, to be honest with you, it's very unlikely, at least in the near term. I think the relations between Washington and Tehran remain fractured, and I don't see that changing, as I say, anytime soon. The other thing as well is, as you know, we're heading into 2024 US elections. I really can't see the Biden administration trying to revive talks which obviously failed over the past 2 years again at this sort of timing, because obviously it would give the Republicans another stick to use in their campaigns.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Last question. It kind of feels since 2019 that not every year, but every quarter, not every month, there's always something groundbreaking, changing. Yeah. You mentioned surprise events before. So on the back of that, what do you think are going to be the surprise events moving forward, or more importantly, what are the risks moving forward this year and beyond? Yeah,
look, surprise events are always difficult, right? Black swans, whatever you want to call them. The current key issues right now that obviously we're all keeping an eye on, or need to keep an eye on. One is obviously the Ukraine conflict, which sadly I think is going to continue for some time to come. I really don't see a near-term ending to that, considering where both sides are positioned at this point. Another big issue, of course, is the huge amount of hard currency debt that is currently owed by a lot of the emerging market and frontier market countries. Cost of living obviously continues to rise in these countries. That raises the risk, which I've mentioned before in our other conversations, in terms of the risk to social instability in some of these countries, and we've already seen that to some extent. And then, if you take maybe a big picture story, I think a big concern for me is the ongoing deterioration of US-China relations. That has a global impact as well, which was an issue. And ironically, it's one of the, in terms of US containment strategy towards China, is probably the only thing that both the Democrats and the Republicans seem to agree on at this point, and in actual fact try to outdo each other on. I think, what I would hope though is that both governments try and find a way to open discussions again. It doesn't need to be on the hot topic icons, whether you're talking about Taiwan or whether we're talking about Ukraine, but it can be something such as climate change, cooperation in climate change again. I think that would help to at least open the doors again in terms of improving relations, because at the end of the day, not only for the rest of the world, relations between China and India in terms of their own prosperity would be a good thing, I think.
Well said. I look forward to seeing you on the next occasion, but
Absolutely.
ever reliable and always insightful. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, mate.
Glenn.
Good to see you again. I appreciate it.
Take
Cheers.
care.
You too.